Do you want to go to a monster mash? It's a graveyard smash. Stephen Sommers brings you Van Helsing as we continue on with Hugh Jackman month. Here's to you, Hugh, with your gorgeous hair in that movie. Van Helsing, the Stephen Sommers horror action, really more action film starring Hugh Jackman, Kate Beckinsale. So let's put some context into this. Again, it's 2001. Hugh Jackman is coming off of X2, X-Men United, and he's doing Broadway. And so apparently he was at a crossroads. He was at a crossroads in his career. He had to decide, was he going to do another big summer blockbuster film, or was he going to try and do more indie work? At the time, he really wanted to do more indie films. He was about to start doing, he was looking at The Fountain. He was about to start doing The Fountain after this film. He really wanted to try and do some other things. He wanted to just be typecast as a summer blockbuster actor. He was also heavily rumored at the time as well to be taking over James Bond. So to kind of put you in the spot of where these things were happening, Stephen Sommers is just coming off of doing The Mummy Returns, which was a huge financial hit, but was not as well received as the first Mummy. And we're going to talk a lot about The Mummy in talking about this film specifically, but so that's where things lay. Hugh Jackman decides he's going to do the movie. He's like, okay, I'll do this movie. And this movie was supposed to set up, like, apparently every time they try and do these things with the Universal monsters, it just doesn't work out, does it? They were trying to set up a whole Van Helsing thing. And interesting thing is that apparently, I don't know if this is true or not, but the other rumor at the time was like, this was sort of supposed to be not this film or this script, but there was talk. It's similar to like the Halle Berry Catwoman, how that was like initially set up as like a thing for Michelle Pfeiffer. This was like initially supposed to be, obviously it was like a different studio, but it was something along the lines, like it was Anthony Hopkins' Van Helsing from the Francis Ford Coppola movie. I turned into this, and it's similar to the Tom Cruise Mummy in that it's another big action-y thing with the Universal monsters that was supposed to set up a whole universe. Hugh Jackman signed on for 3 films. They were going to do a whole Van Helsing verse. There was an animated prequel that I think Hugh Jackman did the voice for that leads you into this movie. There was a comic book. This was supposed to be the summer of Van Helsing. And I haven't probably seen it since the early 2000s, so I watched it today for Cameron Watches Everything. How is it? Let's talk about it. So the movie opens up as any great movie should, in black and white. We're getting the Frankenstein's monsters being created by Dr. Frankenstein, and the villagers are already trying to storm the castle. They really truncate the story of Frankenstein right here. He hasn't even made the monster yet. He's not even finished. And the villagers are already storming the castle. We get to the famous, it's alive! It's alive! And Dracula's there, the Count. They call him the Count because trying to, I guess, withhold that he's Dracula. And the actor playing Dracula, oh my God, throughout the film, he is just chewing up the scenery. If there's scenery in this movie, he's gonna eat it. He's gonna eat it up real good.
Success! Oh. Count, it's just you.
And so he has this grand plan, because it was Count Dracula who wanted the monster made. He has this grand plan for the monster, and he tells Dr. Frankenstein his plan, and Dr. Frankenstein is like, my God, if I'd known, I'd never participate in such a plan. Dracula's like, well, I don't need you anyway. And so he kills Dr. Frankenstein. Dr. Frankenstein's like, help me. And Igor's like, nope. Eat it, Dr. Frankenstein. So the villagers storm the castle, and but the monster is able to take Dr. Frankenstein's body, and he starts getting out of there. And the villagers are like, "Look, it's the creature! Hand it to the window! Come on!" Chase Frankenstein's monster down to the famous windmill scene. If you've ever seen the Universal Frankenstein, they get up to the windmill, they start burning it down, and the monster, he's so hurt, he's emotionally just scarred as he just goes, "Why?" Why? The monster in this film is very eloquent. So he collapses, the windmill collapses, he goes falling down, holding Frankenstein's dead body. Dracula and his 3 brides come out and they're like, oh no! Because even though they're withholding from the audience, what does it mean? Why do they want the monster made? We'll find out. It's really weird. We cut to a year later. Paris, France. We're now in color too. And we see a poster, looking like a drawing from Red Dead Redemption of a wanted poster for Van Helsing. He's wanted by the police as for murder. And he came to France because he is hunting down Dr. Jekyll, or in this case, Mr. Hyde. Mr. Hyde has killed a lady of the night. Van Helsing is like, oh, no. So Van Helsing climbs the Notre Dame Cathedral, where he runs into Mr. Hyde, who is a giant CG monster chomping on a cigar. There's a lot of CG monster stuff in this movie. In comparison, it's hard not to compare this to The Mummy. They have an Incredible Hulk moment because he calls him Dr. Jekyll and he's like, it's Hyde! And he's like, he looks like a big gorilla and he's kind of swinging around.
Here I come!
Van Helsing does like, he traps Van Helsing in one of the giant bells. Van Helsing pulls like a Looney Tunes trick. Well, he's got these like saw blades and he digs a hole underneath the bell, but he's actually hiding in the bell. He chomps off Dr. Jekyll's arm. I'm just calling him Dr. Jekyll. He chops his arm off. And then they have this tug of war battle because he shoots Dr. Jekyll, Van Helsing does, through the stomach with like a grappling gun. And then have tug of war where then Mr. Hyde goes swinging through the church, breaks a giant window, turns back into Dr. Jekyll, and then dies. And this cop, all these people surround the dead body of Dr. Jekyll missing an arm because cop looks up and he sees the silhouette. And it's such a clear silhouette because he's all the way on top of the Notre Dame Cathedral. So this cop either has the best vision in the world or Van Helsing needs to just get a different look going. And the cop looks up and he goes, "Damn you, Van Helsing, you murderer!" So, this is why he's just constantly wanted. Everyone knows who Van Helsing is. They don't know why he's doing it. See, the thing is he's a part of a secret society through the church. And so he goes to have his confessional. And this is when we find out the backstory of Van Helsing. It is, let me know if this sounds familiar. It is a dark, brooding character who is mostly on the side of good, but a bit of an anti-hero, and he can't remember his past, and he's played by Hugh Jackman. Did you think Wolverine? Good, because I think that's what the movie wanted you to think, but no, it's Van Helsing. Van Helsing does not remember his past. He's working for the church, though, to try to discover his past histories. It's just Wolverine. And that's where we meet the character of Carl. Carl, who's basically like Van Helsing's Q. He develops these things for him. But Van Helsing is like, "You're coming with me on this trip, Carl," because the church assigns Van Helsing to go to Transylvania. He has to go meet this royal family of a prince and a princess who, it's their family's mission to stop Count Dracula. They've been trying for 400 years. So they're very bad at it. So Van Helsing is sent to go try to help this family because these two are the last remaining of their bloodline. So if Dracula were to kill them and destroy them, that's it, the bloodline's over. Why the church did not send Van Helsing here way earlier if this family was trying for 400 years, don't worry about it. So he's bringing Carl. Carl does not want to come. Carl's like, no. Brings him anyway. So this is when we do meet Kate Beckinsale, or we meet the werewolf in the film too, and her brother. So they're trying to hunt down a werewolf, and Kate Beckinsale turns around, her hair is flowing, and her brother's being used as bait. And she pulls out this sword, and she goes charging at this werewolf, trying to save her brother, and then the werewolf goes chasing after her, but her brother steps in front of her, he sacrifices himself, he gets tackled into the water. We're like, oh my God, is the brother dead? He's not. We cut back to Van Helsing. They're just arriving into the small town in Transylvania. And the townsfolk, this is the same townsfolk, by the way, who hunted down the Frankenstein monster. So is Kate Beckinsale as their princess? Did she sanction this? Was she aware of it? We don't know. We never find that out. We don't know those answers. Don't worry about it. And so the town people are very apprehensive about Van Helsing being there. They're like, we don't like outsiders. And you're just like, look, this guy's here to help. You got a vampire werewolf problem. This is your concern, is the guy in a cowboy hat?
Let me see your faces.
Why?
Because we don't trust strangers.
And that's right when the brides of Dracula, the three brides, show up and they have this giant battle. And they're trying to capture Kate Beckinsale. Specifically, they want Kate Beckinsale. And Van Helsing, it turns into this giant battle scene, this tug of war. It's all this CGI, it's flying everywhere. Van Helsing dips one of the crosses. He's got a crossbow thing that Carl made him. He dips it in holy water, turns around. Puka, 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 puka. She melts away, which makes the other two brides go, ah! And they take off. They take off towards the castle. And the townsfolk are like, they're so mad at Van Helsing. And Van Helsing's like, this is not a thank you. And then they're like, vampires only eat what they must, 1 or 2 of us a month. Now you've angered them. They'll kill for pleasure. The princess is like, he's killed the first person to kill a vampire in hundreds of years. I think that deserves a drink. But you're sitting there going like, these people are so pissed. Well, then why did you try and kill the Frankenstein monster? And why are you hunting werewolves? If your biggest thing is Dracula's gonna have a vendetta. So you want to kill the monsters or you don't? What do you want? You townies, you fucking townsfolk. Make up your mind. We cut to Dracula. He rises out of his grave screaming for his bride. Ah! Again, chewing the scenery. Beautiful stuff. And his brides are like, and he's like, well, whatever, I'll find a new bride. They're like, don't you have a heart? He's like, I have no heart. I feel nothing. And then he laughs. So he can feel something. He feels some sense of joy. And I'm going to just call her Kate Beckinsale. I don't remember the character's name. She's a princess. Princess Kate Beckinsale. They're having a conversation. And they're like, she's like, I'm going to hunt Dracula. You're going to come with me. We're going to try and do it together. And he's like, yeah, sure. And then it maces her in the face. Which knocks her out. And when she comes to, here comes her brother's there. He's not dead. He's shirtless though. And the full moon rises. And this, credit where it's due, pretty cool werewolf transformation scene. It's all CG, but pretty cool. Is that he's like ripping, like the werewolf is coming out. It's kind of like that show, Hemlock Grove, where the werewolf is like erupting from the person. So he's ripping off his skin, and that's where the werewolf is. Van Helsing comes running in with his little gun and it poof, like shoots once, and the werewolf like jumps and runs away. Why the werewolf did not try to take out Van Helsing at that point, who knows? Don't worry about it. There's so much plot. There's so many things that happen. This movie, it's too long. It's too long. It's way too long. Jumps out the window. Van Helsing runs to the town, meets the gravekeeper, gravedigger, whatever the guy's job is. Werewolf tackles him. It's hysterically funny. And Kate Beckinsale's like, did you know that werewolf was my brother? And Van Helsing's like, forget it. Your brother's dead. He might as well be dead. He's not your brother anymore. She gets mad at him, but then she has like a line of dialogue about like, I've never seen the sea.
I've never been to the sea.
There's all these lines that are like trying to be deep. They go to Castle Dracula, and this is when we discover what the plan is, what Dracula, or not Castle Dracula, sorry, Dr. Frankenstein, Castle Frankenstein. Because Castle Dracula they've been looking for 400 years. This is why they can't find him. We go there, and this is when we discover what I guess Dracula's plan is, which is that his wives give birth to these giant oogie egg sacs.
A man with 3 gorgeous women for 400 years.
Yes. Vampires are the walking dead. It only makes sense that children are born dead.
But the babies are already dead at the start, but they're like bat babies. And so these babies are born dead. They have no life. So they wanted to make the monster to electrocute these eggs to bring all the babies to life. It's so complicated. So the Princess Kate Beckinsale tries to go save her brother. Doesn't work. Dracula meets Van Helsing. And then he stabs him. Van Helsing stabs him, gives him the cross, and then Dracula's like, hello, Gabriel. And we're supposed to be like, oh my God, he knows him, but his secret, Van Helsing doesn't know his past, but Dracula knows him, what? And so there's whole conversation, they have a whole talk. They have a whole talk about like, Gabriel, blah, 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 don't you remember, don't you this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. And you might think to yourself, man, this is all good, if you think this is interesting and you think this is all going to be answered, like, what does this mean? How do they know each other, this, that, and the other? Don't worry about it, because I think it was something they were saving for the sequel that never happened. So we never find out why Van Helsing doesn't remember anything, what the Gabriel thing, is he the angel Gabriel? There's hints to that. But again, nothing is answered. We'll talk about that more in the end. So they use the electricity on the brother. Some of the babies come back, but they don't last. So the babies erupt into the town. They start taking people.
My darlings!
And then they kind of burst like gushers, like gusher fruit snacks. They just all burst. So that's why they need the monster, because of just electrocuting a human to send the power surging. So Van Helsing and Princess Kate Beckinsale escape. And they fall into the ground, and it's the same ground where the windmill stood. So of course, what's that mean? You better believe it. You know what that means. It means that they find the monster. The monster is not only is the monster very eloquent, the monster also seems to know what his purpose is, which is weird, because I don't understand how that is. How does the monster know what it's supposed to be? Like, don't get me wrong. I'm totally fine with the monster being like, I learned how to speak. I've been down here for a year. I'm eloquent, and I have a soul. Ugh. But he seems to know what Dracula's plan is with him, and I don't know how, unless he overheard Frankenstein's dead body told him when he was carrying him away. But yeah, he's like, if you bring me back. So Kate Beckinsale wants to kill the monster. Van Helsing's like, I can't. This thing's not evil. It may have been made by evil, but it's not evil, and we can't kill it. And the Frankenstein, she's like, what do you want? And the Frankenstein's monster goes like, to just exist. And then 2 seconds later, Frankenstein's monster's like, you should kill me. It makes no sense. Whatever. The werewolf sees them, so the werewolf, I guess, goes and tells Dracula. How? I don't know. Does Dracula understand werewolf? Does he do it as the human? I don't know. None of this is answered. Carl, by the way, slept with some lady, which is it's a weird scene, because like Carl saved this woman, and she's like, how can I repay you? And he whispers in her ear, and she goes, but you're a monk. And he goes, I'm a friar, actually. So I guess she's like, how can I repay you for saving my life? And he goes like, fuck me? 2001, man, the time things were different. We were totally like, that's fine in movies. That's totally okay. So they're like, we got to get the monster out of here. We got to get the monster to Rome. It's the only way. It's the only way. Make sure he's safe. Make sure everything goes right. So they set up this whole elaborate plan where they're going to take 2 carriages. It's a twist. They take 2 carriages, and the one Van Helsing is in. The brides of Dracula come and try and grab him. They think the monster's in there. That carriage falls off a bridge, and the brides are like, we gotta save the monster. So we save the creature. So one of the brides goes down. She opens up the carriage. Turns out, no monster. It's a ruse. Inside that is a bomb full of steaks.
Steaks!
That explodes, so it goes to her. By the way, this plan interprets that wherever this thing blew up, I guess other people were not going to be. You got lucky, Van Helsing, or Carl, whoever's plan this was, you got fucking lucky. Because there's another carriage, that's the one Kate Beckinsale is driving. The monster's in there with Carl. Van Helsing catches up, but that's when the werewolf shows up. And so Van Helsing, they get to, it's a whole thing. It's a whole Indiana Jones-esque thing. Van Helsing finally shoots the monster. And when he does, it turns back into the brother. Kate Beckinsale's like, you killed my brother. And then we discover Van Helsing has like a rip in his stomach. The monster, they got bit.
Oh my God.
He's going to become a werewolf. My God, Van Helsing's going to become the thing that's been he's going to be the hunted instead of the hunter. And then one of the bride shows up and kidnaps Kate Beckinsale. It's a whole thing. So then it becomes the final bride shows up. She's like, we got to barter. We're going to barter a trade. Give us the creature and we'll give you Kate Beckinsale. And Van Helsing's like, okay. And the creature's like, what the fuck, bro? Knocks out the creature, has no intention of actually handing over the creature. Goes to this castle where Dracula is so sexual with Kate Beckinsale. He's just all up on her boobs and rubbing and everything. But it's Dracula. I guess that makes sense. But it's also weird because Kate Beckinsale's hypnotized. Unlike like Bram Stoker's Dracula, that movie, where it's like Winona Ryder's like, she wants it. Kate Beckinsale does not want this. So there's a lot of like stuff, but he's the villain. I don't know. It's all... So Van Helsing shows up, does some acrobatics. We look in the mirror. Turns out, oh my God, everyone at the ball is in fact a vampire. They're a vampire as well. So that seems like they're surrounded, but Carl then brings out this bomb that he created that has the power of the sun, and he never knew what to use it for before, but tonight he sets it off. This giant sunlight beam bomb goes off. Igor found the creature though, and so Igor is taking the creature away, and Van Helsing is like slowly turning into a werewolf because he's pissed. He grabs Carl because Carl's like, we can't save the monster because I told Rome, and even if we save him, we got to kill him. And Van Helsing grabs Carl by the throat. He's like, did you tell them about me? So mad. And then Hugh Jackman has to do the thing that you see in a lot of monster movies that are like, I don't know if an actor, if you think it's good or embarrassing, but it's the thing where they have to stand there and go, but like, it's not their voices. They just put like monster sound effects over it. I think it's embarrassing. Mostly like in that douche chill way. Like Hugh Jackman's he's going for it though. So they go back to where they're staying because Carl, you see, when he slept with that woman, found a painting. He found a secret painting that told of how to kill Dracula. How convenient. And they also found a map that takes them to Castle Dracula, and it has the last scroll that Van Helsing have. And it turns out the way to kill Dracula is with a werewolf. You have to be a werewolf to kill Dracula. And there's a cure. There's a cure for the werewolfism, for the lycanthropy. So they show up, grab Igor, and it's like, Kate Beckinsale, Carl, you go with Igor. I'm going to go try to find the creature and set him free. I'm going to find the creature and set him free. By the way, one of my favorite moments in this is when the creature is taken. Van Helsing gets to have his last of the Mohicans moment. His stay alive. He gets his moment.
Stay alive no matter what occurs. I will find you. I'll find you. I'll get you back and set you free. I swear to God.
Same look, covered in rain, long hair. And so when Kate Beckinsale and Van Helsing, before they separate, they have a conversation. And he's like, hey, if you're late, make sure you kill me. She's like, okay. And he goes, don't be late. And then they kiss, which, I don't know, there hasn't really been a lot of romance in this movie. I mean, other than that, they're both attractive people. She's wearing a corset through the whole thing, by the way. I don't know if I'd be hunting a werewolf wearing a corset. I feel like it'd be very restrictive and uncomfortable. I feel like you got to do a lot of running, breathing, whatever. Igor, there's this whole acrobatic thing with Igor and Carl, and they have to get the cure. The cure, by the way, is in like a thing of acid, which seems very inconvenient for Dracula. If his whole thing is he created a cure to like take out a werewolf, why you would put it in a bottle of acid, but whatever. Oh, and also the creature, again, talking about information that the creature shouldn't probably know. The creature tells Van Helsing, there's a cure, save yourself. And I'm like, how does the creature know this? I have no problem with the creature being intelligent. How does he know the things he knows? And along with that too, there's a scene when Dracula tells Van Helsing, he's like, Gabriel, do you ever, Transylvania, blah. Gabriel, do you ever wonder? That turned real bad Scottish, by the way. He just goes like, Gabriel, do you ever wonder why you have bad dreams? Have you ever wondered about that? This is the first we've ever heard about Van Helsing having bad dreams, by the way. Never a single scene with Van Helsing like waking up going like, from like dreams or anything like that. All this information about Van Helsing and his secret past, we're just told by characters, like we don't experience any of it. He's Wolverine, he's just Wolverine. So anyway, Van Helsing and Dracula have a giant CGI battle monster fight where one turns into a werewolf, the other one turns into a bat. And they just kind of fight it out for a while, mocking each other. Finally kills Dracula by biting him in the neck. Ironic. Kate Beckinsale comes out. She's got the cure. And by the way, up to this point, the whole acrobatic scene, Kate Beckinsale's getting smashed against concrete walls. Long, really high speeds, constantly. She's constantly bashing into things. Hugh Jackman's werewolf tackles her onto a couch, and it's hysterically funny. Which instantly kills her. She dies. The hero of the movie killed her, but she was able to get the cure right in his abdomen. And so Carl comes up. He thinks he's gonna have to kill his werewolf friend Van Helsing. But he grabs Carl's arm, and then you see like this sad dog face, which is hysterical. If you ever want to see a sad werewolf, this is the movie.
In the arms of the angel.
So sad. He turns back into Hugh Jackman. He's carrying Kate Beckinsale's life like, no! And then he burns her. He burns her body. He puts her body on a pyre, and then burns it. Which makes me go like, she's a princess. She's a princess to this town. Let her have a royal funeral. Bring her back. But I guess you'd have to explain why she died. And look, the townspeople didn't like you already. Let's be honest about it, Van Helsing. How do you explain this part? Her spirit goes into the clouds with her brother. And Van Helsing watches her spirit, her spirit, and smiles at him, this cloud spirit. And then a tear falls. And then Van Helsing and Carl ride off. Credits! End of the movie! Whoa! Man, how do you talk about this one? So, not good. And I feel bad saying that, man, because listen. Stephen Sommers as a director, I like The Mummy. I have The Mummy on 4K. I really like The Mummy. It's a wonderful, charming film. I feel like it knows exactly what it is. I think the cast is fantastic in it. This is probably going to be one of the longer episodes because there's so much plot. The Mummy is beautifully simple. And I don't know what happened after The Mummy, because The Mummy Returns also gets so plotty and complicated, and there's so many moving pieces. Van Helsing is like that. And then his G.I. Joe even suffers from a similar thing of like, let's be very withholding and we'll mention things that we're going to totally do in a sequel. And even though that got a sequel, they really didn't mention that stuff. They did not go back into that stuff. And there's all these like secret histories and past. So I think this is the big difference is like, The Mummy, both those main characters are super likable. I think everyone in the cast is super likable. Like, Brendan Fraser is a wonderful, like sarcastic and knows how to deliver those lines. Hugh Jackman in this, and it's not Hugh Jackman's fault. This character is written to like, just be a badass. Like, there's nothing like comedic, unlike Brendan Fraser, who got to be very comedic. There's nothing really comedic about Van Helsing. Kate Beckinsale's character, in comparison to Rachel Weisz's character got to be like a real human, right? Like, she got to be very kind of like at times fumbly, at times very clumsy. The first time we meet that character, she is like on the ladder and she knocks over this library. There's a very clumsy old Hollywood comedy thing to it. Kate Beckinsale's character, she's supposed to be a normal person. Yes, she's a princess. Yes, her family's been like hunting vampires for 400 years. But like I said, she has like super abilities. She does superhero stuff throughout the whole movie. Like, no one in this is like flawed comedically, other than like Carl is a coward, I guess. But even still, he's super competent. Like, it's very interesting comparing this to The Mummy, because it's like, why was The Mummy now, 20 years later, which just popped up on, I think, Netflix, and you're seeing people on Twitter be like, oh man, The Mummy. Rewatching it and being like, man, it's so fun, it holds up, it's such a great... And I think it's simplicity in characters. Van Helsing is not simple. And you can do, and the argument could be like, well, you have to do all the monsters and this, that, and the other, and you have to, you got to tell those stories. So therefore, blah, blah, blah. Each character, everybody needs a reason to be there. You can do a monster mash and keep it under, this movie's 2 hours and 10 minutes. Monster Squad is 85 minutes. It's a monster mash. It's great. Concise. And again, this movie I think suffers from, like The Mummy, that film, its story is finished the minute there's credits. I know there was 2 sequels, but the minute the credits hit, they told that story. This again has the thing of like a secret past and who's this character and withhold this and withhold that. We'll get into that in the sequel. Is he the angel Gabriel? But you're also like, if there were sequels, I don't know, who would he fight? The Gill Man? The devil? Like, you had all the big Universal monsters in this film. Again, except like the Gill Man. Unless you were going to do a crossover with The Mummy and he was going to fight Imhotep, I don't know what this would have been, what a sequel would have been. Hugh Jackman's very charming. Kate Beckinsale's very charming. Everyone in this is trying. So here are the positives, I will say. The score by Alan Silvestri rips. It rips. It's so good. It's a great score. Again, the werewolf idea of ripping himself out. I think that's the other thing too, is like, I mentioned the CGI a lot, and the reason I do that is, again, if you go watch The Mummy, there's a fair amount of CGI in that. Imhotep, when he first comes out and is the mummy, he's a CGI creation, the sand. But other than that, a lot of the Mummy is done very practically. They're on location. Like a lot of things are done very practically. Not all of it, but a lot of it. It felt like a movie that knew this is what had to be CG, but this we could do for real. The werewolf, the fact that there's never a guy in a suit, the fact that Dracula is consistently, when he's in monster form, is also CG. The babies are CG. Everything in this is CG. And the problem is now, almost 20 years later, the scenes where Hugh Jackman has to talk to Dr. Jekyll, and they're this close to each other on screen, he's talking to a cartoon. He's talking to a giant cartoon. And so it's these, whereas like The Mummy I think holds up because, again, simple, great characters, and it knew when to use its effects. Van Helsing, and it, shorter. Like, again, Van Helsing is 210. The Mummy is... Oh, don't make me look a fool. Where are you, timestamp? 2 hours and 5 minutes. So it's only 5 minutes shorter. So credit. I'm a little wrong on that one. It's only 5 minutes shorter. But still, again, it felt like... That movie felt like it moved. Van Helsing, some of it's a lot of fun, but some of it does kind of feel sloggy, and a lot of it is characters explaining things to each other. The monster's explaining its purpose. We have to hear about the monster's purpose, how the werewolf works, the fact that it's werewolves that are going to kill Dracula, and why Dracula, these brides, and the family, and why the family's 400 years, and Van Helsing's secret history, but why does he work for the Vatican? He's wanted, man. But yeah, I don't know, check it out, let me know what you think. 20 years later, we still talk about The Mummy, and almost the same amount of time we don't really talk about Van Helsing. Like, nobody seems to want to talk about it. Yeah, so let me know in the comments below, though. When's the last time you've seen this? Have you seen this? Are you younger than me and you're just like, this was a great movie I grew up with? I'd love to know that. Next week, we're going to wrap up Hugh Jackman month with a bit of a musical. Thank you for watching, everybody. Please make sure you like and subscribe, hit that bell, do all those things, and I'll see you for another episode of Cameron Watches Everything.